So today we're going to break down a really passionate sermon by a speaker named Pastor Allen. And it all comes down to this one powerful metaphor. He uses it to diagnose what he sees as a huge problem in the modern church and, well, to offer a pretty radical solution. So what's the problem that has him so fired up?
And there it is. He just comes right out of the gate with this. It's basically an alarm bell. In his view, the church isn't just being quiet. It's become completely passive. It's lost the very power that's supposed to make it a force for change in the world. Okay, so if the church is asleep, what does it actually look like to be awake? That's the real question here. And Pastor Allen, he doesn't answer with a long list of rules or a 5-point plan. Instead, he paints this incredible picture of two very, very different bodies of water.
And this, right here, is the bedrock of his entire message. It's a really simple but profound comparison, a tale of two waters. And these two waters, they represent two completely different ways of being, not just for the church as a whole, but for each person in it.
This is the main event. On one side, you got the Dead Sea, stagnant, salty, nothing can live in it. And on the other side, you have the river. It's moving, it's fresh, it's powerful. And for him, there is no middle ground. You're either one or the other. So let's dive into what he means by the Dead Sea first.
Right, so this first half of the metaphor, it's a critique, plain and simple. The Dead Sea is his symbol for everything he thinks has gone wrong, a state of, well, ineffectiveness and spiritual paralysis.
And it's really interesting how he defines the problem. He uses the word religion, but not in the way you might think. For him, it means a return to bondage. He says this is what happens when institutions start to mold God into their own image, to make God more comfortable, turning faith into a system of control instead of freedom.
And what's the result of that? Well, according to him, this is it, a Dead Sea church. It stops offering real, deep transformation and just starts handing out superficial fixes. He calls it a self-help medication center, where the goal is just to make people feel a little better, not to challenge them to actually change.
He gets really specific about the symptoms. He says you've got congregations that are spiritually starving because they're being fed these watered-down, easy-to-swallow messages. There's this fear of offending anyone with the truth, which he argues just creates a bunch of undercover Christians. It's a picture of total stagnation.
And then he brings it right down to the individual level. He basically throws out this challenge. If you look at your life and you're in the exact same place you were a year ago, you haven't grown, you haven't changed, then you're not a river. You're in a Dead Sea.
Okay, so that's the problem, the Dead Sea. But he doesn't just leave it there. The rest of his message is all about the solution. And this is what he calls the river, the active, moving, totally life-giving alternative. And wow, the difference between the two, it's like night and day. The Dead Sea is all about stagnation and control. The river is movement and flow. One offers band-aids, the other offers real healing. Think about it. The Dead Sea has an inlet, water comes in, but it has no outlet. It just sits there. The river, on the other hand, is always flowing out from a source. It's the difference between just watching from the bank and actually being in the current.
This quote really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? He presents the river as this unstoppable force. It doesn't wait for things to be perfect. It doesn't ask for permission. Its very nature is just to move, to push forward, to flow. And he really doubles down on this idea. The river isn't just water moving from point A to point B. No, it's this powerful agent of change that actually reshapes the entire landscape it touches. It carves its own path as it goes. So the takeaway here is that this river kind of faith, it's not supposed to be neat and tidy. It's meant to be disruptive, but in a good way. It's meant to change spiritual landscapes and just move things around, clear out the obstacles. All right, so we've got these two big opposing ideas, the Dead Sea and the river. But the big question is, how do you get out of one and into the other? So the sermon then switches gears and becomes a direct call to action. And this is where it stops it being just a cool idea and becomes about personal responsibility. He has this big warning about just being a spectator, standing on the bank and just watching the river go by. For him, watching is not enough. You have to actually get in the water. And he boils it all down into 3 really simple, direct steps. First, he says, stop looking back at your past failures or even your past successes. Second, open your mouth. He keeps coming back to this idea that when you speak, the river flows out. And third, just flow. Stop overthinking it, stop trying to control it, and just move. And this quote, this really digs into what he means by just flow. It's all about surrender. It's about letting go of your own plans and your own anxieties, stepping out of that shallow water where you're in control and into the deep current where you're not.
So, what's the end game here? What's the whole point of all this? What happens when a person or an entire church really gets into the flow of the river? Well, the sermon wraps up by describing the final purpose and impact of this kind of active faith.
And this is a really key point. He makes it clear. The river isn't just about you. Your personal change is just the start. The whole point of being in the current is that it's supposed to carry you outwards, to bring that same life and hope to everyone and everything you touch. He talks about the river as this all-in-one source. Whatever you need, healing, purpose, growth, it's all found within the flow. It's not like you have to pack a bag before you jump in. Everything you need for the journey is found in the journey itself. And that leads to his final vision. He sees every person in the river as someone who has the power to unlock the potential in other people. It becomes this chain reaction that builds what he calls a living army, constantly moving and bringing life wherever it goes.
So, there you have it. The whole sermon really hangs on this one powerful metaphor, the Dead Sea versus the river. It's a passionate call to trade stagnation for movement, to stop being a spectator and start being a participant. Which kind of leaves us with a big question to chew on. What does the appeal of such a simple, dramatic image tell us about the desire for a faith that does more than just exist, a faith that actually flows?